Good morning, morning. How you doing this morning? Oh, awesome. Well, I definitely want to be mindful of your time here. I know time is of the essence and it's very important. But I always, of course, love any excuse I get an opportunity to come back to Jacksonville, of course. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina with my beautiful wife of 24 years, and we have a young girl. My baby girl is 19 years old. She's always going to be my baby girl, and she goes to UNCC right now in her second year. But John, of course, he just spoke to you about how we connected with the Game Plan for Life event 5 years ago. Of course, he had already connected with Coach, and so he shared a little bit of a history there. But he talked about having Game Plan for Life come out, and of course, having Game Plan here 5 years ago is pretty much how Game Plan started, to do an outreach event all over the country. And it's more than just doing an event. For us, our mission is really Matthew 28, therefore go to make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so, of course, we want to reach people for Christ. And, of course, give them opportunity to, as we say, get on God's team. But more importantly, our mission is to then go out and disciple, use what the Lord has given us to go and disciple. And so we use sports as an opportunity to be able to draw unsaved, unchurched men and women, of course, to be able to hear a gospel message. For Coach, you know, he saw a lot of our men not in church, and he would go around the country and speak at all these big churches, and he just said, man, where are our men? And so they did a survey, and the survey came back and really showed where men across the United States were dropping the ball, as overall our men not being the fathers, the husbands, the men of God that the Lord has called us to be. And so Coach felt like, you know, he needed to use his platform to reach these unsaved men. And so we partner with churches, groups like CBMC and Wise Counsel, because there are so many unchurched men in the marketplace. And what a great opportunity to be able to reach people for Christ. And so our events are more than just doing an event. That's really the beginning. And so it was a great partnership doing that event here in Jacksonville. 80% of the people that come are unsaved, unchurched. They usually would never go into a church, but they'll come and hear from the coach, come hear from the businessman, whether you're a NASCAR fan or football fan. If you're neither, then you're probably brain dead. No, I'm just joking. But that's what Coach says. You need to check their pulse if they don't like either or. But we know there's a draw. And, of course, using that platform where Coach has an opportunity to be able to share his testimony and be able to present the gospel in a grassroots way through his life, sharing not his accolades or his accomplishments, but really sharing his pitfalls, his failures, on how, one, he became bankrupt as a Super Bowl coach. Not too many people know that. And how God worked through that mess, which he shares. Or he's a diabetic, not taking care of his body because he was going for the championships, not being there with his family and missing all that time from his young boys because he was sleeping in the office. They're gonna hear those stories, and it relates to the struggles of just that other person. And so he has that opportunity to then allow those men and women to come on God's team. But more importantly, it's about the follow-up afterwards. And John Beener and his guys did a great job for the table coaches to be able to have an opportunity to have an easy invite, to invite a fan, I'll say a friend, family, associate, or neighbor, somebody that you've tried to get to come to church, but this right here is an easy invite, friendly invite to say, hey, come here, Coach Gibbs, at this convention center. And so we were able to do that. At that event, I think it was probably about 800 and plus, John. Over 30% at that event gave their life to Christ for the first time. There were over 25% rededications. Now, we're not about the numbers, but we want to be mindful of the time, talents, and treasures that the Lord has given us. And so even if it's just one, there's a celebration in heaven. But again, we want to use that platform to get those men and women back in church. That's our ultimate goal, so they can continue to enjoy and be discipled, so then they can go and disciple their sphere of influence. And so I just wanted to share that. Our Game Plan for Life book we give it away for free. Our race team is really a ministry that just happens to go around the track on Sunday, but we're really a ministry. And so our mission statement is on our wall when you come into Joe Gibbs Racing. If you ever come to Charlotte, you'll see that mission statement right there, and doing everything that we do in excellence unto the Lord, no matter if it's a sponsor or whatever. And you guys are the same. And I'm so grateful for Wise Counsel for what you guys are doing, and all you businessmen and ladies and influencers using your platform to reach people for Christ, to be a light in the marketplace. And so I'm so grateful, of course, hearing Ross Mason's story. Definitely for us, it's a need from the NFL side, because health care is something for us players that is a huge struggle for a lot of my brethren. We only are covered for 5 years after you play. And we cannot get coverage for health care because of our injuries. And so definitely so grateful that I had a chance to connect with Ross. Man, that guy right there is something special. And so to be able to allow, especially a lot of these guys, have you ever seen Earl Campbell? I mean, and that's just one. It's unbelievable what the game has done to a lot of the guys. But these guys can't get coverage. So hopefully we can make something happen there and give God the glory. But John just wanted me to just share a little bit of my testimony. And I just want to just share, for me, guys, coming from the south side of Chicago, having the opportunity to play football was always a dream for me. To have an opportunity, my dream was to go to the University of Notre Dame when I was in high school. I went to an all-boy Catholic school on the south side of Chicago. My high school is across from White Sox Stadium. If you've ever been or seen White Sox Stadium, there's an all-boy Catholic school right across the street from there. And a lot of the old greats that have gone there, the Mayor Dailies have gone to my high school, the Gumballs have gone to my high school, but I was just a kid from the south side, from a hard-working family, blue collar, and my mom was an educator there on the south side, and she knew if I was to go to Simeon, where I was slated to go in the public school, it would be tough for me to go with all the other distractions. And so my mom and dad really sacrificed for me and my sister to go to a private school. Of course, the school that I wanted to go to was 2.5 hours from my house. And so every day, it took me 2 hours to get on the Chicago transportation and the L station in the middle, 2.5 hours to get to school and to be on time. And I was never late. My mom's a teacher, so I was never late. And then 2.5 hours afterwards to get home. And sometimes it would cause for late nights after football practice. I would get home about 9 p.m. and I was able to still make the honor roll. And so I appreciate my mom and dad making that sacrifice for me to go to De La Salle. And, of course, playing football was an idea of my high school football coach who talked me into not quitting the basketball team, because I was a basketball player during the Chicago Bulls era. And I was 6'3", the same height I am now, in the 6th and 7th grade. So you can imagine what I thought my career was going to take me to. I was dunking in elementary school, and they were asking for, my birth certificate, because they couldn't believe I was only 12 and 11 years old, 6'3", and so I'm like, man, I'm going to be a basketball player. I'm going to be about 6'10". So I went to the school that actually had the best basketball program, which was De La Salle. Our football program, not so much. Until my sophomore year, my high school coach came to me and he said, hey, son, I know you were the MVP of the Catholic League your freshman year, but I need to ask you a question. How many centers are 6'3" in the NBA or even college? Because that's what I was doing. I was a center. And I said, not too many. He said, look, if you focus on football, I really believe that you can really have an opportunity for scholarships, because they don't give too many in basketball, maybe a couple. But each year in college, you get opportunity 20 to 25 scholarships. And so at that time, at 15 years old, it clicked for me. I said, I don't think I'm going to go as far in this basketball deal. And I really focused on football. And true enough, my senior year, I was getting recruited by a lot of the Big Ten schools. But I never got recruited by Notre Dame, which was a dream for me to go to. Of course, Lou Holtz was there, won the championship in '88. Some great teams during that time, but I never got recruited by Notre Dame until a recruiter came down and told me the story about the great Moose Krause. Had never heard of Moose Krause. Moose Krause actually went to my high school, which is over 100 years old. And Moose Krause at that time was 85 years old, and he was a staple at Notre Dame, one of the pillars. They got names of buildings after Moose Krause, the Moose Field. Moose was one of the original four horsemen. It's not a myth. He was one of the original four horsemen at Notre Dame. But he went to my high school, and he told the recruiter, you need to give that kid at De La Salle a scholarship. The recruiter says to me, you're not even the type of guy we would even recruit. You're not the best of the best. We only recruit the best of the best. But if Moose tells me to give you a scholarship, I need to do that. I may not have a job when I go back. When Moose tells you to do something, you do it, of course. And, of course, he told me, but it's only one condition. You haven't taken any visits, and if I leave out of this room, the scholarship goes with me. Because he was in the beginning stage, and he just come down and figured, hey, I'll offer the kid, but, of course, he's not going to turn down other visits. I said, I'm taking it. He looked at me, are you sure? He's trying to talk me out of it. You hadn't taken any visits anyplace else. You're going to go ahead and just commit now? I said, I'm taking it. This is a dream for me. And so I signed right there on the dotted line. And, of course, a dream come true, but also with that decision came a lot of other talk around my friends, family, basically telling me I would never play at Notre Dame. How would I play at Notre Dame when they recruit the best of the best? And, of course, I started to think about those things until my coach said, go for your dream, son. And, of course, people were speaking life into me. And I took that scholarship. And when I got on campus, it felt like what people told me you couldn't do was actually true for me. I remember my freshman year, and I was inside the facility, and they were doing a live practice. And I remember Jerome Bettis ran over a linebacker. Boom, ran this All-American linebacker over the bus, ran over this guy. And I'm on the side watching this. I'm like, oh, my gosh. He just ran over our All-American linebacker, Demetrius DeBose, who ended up being a top draft pick for the Tampa Bay Bucks. And I'm like, I don't even want to get in there. And, of course, it felt like the coach must have heard it because all of a sudden he asked for the last team, not the first, second, or third string, but the last team to get in there against the starters. And I remember being in there, and I'm so nervous. I had thought about this, guys. You know, they say you prepare. You know what I mean? It's proper preparation prevents poor performance. So I've already thought this out. If I happen to get in there and Jerome Bettis is coming up the middle, I'm not taking him up top. He just ran over a 250-pound linebacker. I'm going to take his knees out. I'm going to take him out. And so I had already thought about it, but I also thought about, hey, when I talked to the D-line, because I was a safety. I was 6'3", 205 at the time. And so I'm at the safety position. I'm talking to the D-line. I'm talking to the linebackers. I'm like, hey, you got to get to him. Let's go, guys. You know why? Because I didn't want them to get back to me. So I figured if I talked to these guys and get them hype, and we all were nervous in there, man, they wouldn't get back to me. I wouldn't even have to touch Jerome Bettis. But it was just the opposite. It opened up like the Red Sea. And Rick Meyer, our starting All-American quarterback, hands the ball to the bus. And here he comes right at me. My eyes are this big. Now, I had planned this out to take his legs out, but when it happens, man, it doesn't always happen the way you planned it, especially when fear comes into play. And I felt like I was about to twinkle on myself back there. And so here he comes, and I take a shot. I put my head down, which they tell you never do, and I close my eyes. That's how nervous I was. True story. And I take my shot to hope that I hit Jerome Bettis. I don't even touch him. Because Jerome had great feet. He did a juke move on me. I mean, I don't even touch him. He goes into the end zone. I'm trying to get off the field. Lou Holtz is running across the field, and he's spitting because he has a bad lisp, so he's spitting. And I couldn't understand him till he got in my face, and he started Woody Hayesing me because Lou Holtz was on the staff with Woody Hayes when they won the championship. And so he would Woody Hayes us. And he was Woody Hayesing me, taking my helmet, and he's spitting in my face. Hey, son, get off the field. My grandmother's better than you. And I'm like, oh, my God. He said, his grandmother's better than me. I'm like, this is horrible. He said, son, I want a red shirt. I said, I want a red shirt. I don't want to play anyway the first year. But then he also said, hey, you cannot practice. You can't practice. And I'm like, I can't even practice? You know, I mean, Rudy was a practice guy. He was able to practice, but I couldn't practice. What was Lou trying to do? He wanted me to quit. He wanted me to give up my scholarship, and he knew that I no longer had protection and covering. Because when I got on campus, I procrastinated. I said, man, I'll go and thank Moose. Had never met him next week. Moose died of a heart attack. I never thanked Moose Krause. I want to try to find his family just to tell him I appreciate the opportunity. because I never met him, but he knew me and he gave me an opportunity. And of course, Lou knew that Moose was no longer around and he needed my scholarship. A lot of coaches do that around the country. They make a guy quit, give up his scholarship. And so that was the case, which I was like, I'm out of here. I need to go to Northern Illinois, someplace where I know I'll play. And I had a couple of coaches in my ear at the time, 2 coaches. Urban Meyer was our wide receiver coach. He said, hey, don't give up, Reno. Had another guy named Charlie Strong, who's the D-line coach. Don't give up. You'll never realize what's on the other side of the mountain if you give up. You'll never be able to know. You may not play, but don't give up. And so those words really came to me such an important way in my life. It was a defining moment in my life because I didn't practice. I couldn't go to the games and stand on the sidelines. I had to sit in the stands, and so I hung in there. The next season, Lou Holtz did open it up for tryouts. And I ended up beating all the All-Americans in my class, which at that time we were the #1 recruiting class in the country. Miami was #2 when we came in. I was the last guy ranked in that class. And I ended up starting as a redshirt freshman there my second year. We beat Florida State. I'm sorry. I know Charlie Ward and the guys came up to Notre Dame in '93 and 1 versus 2, iconic game. We ended up beating Florida State and upset them there, and then lost to Boston College the next week to a field goal, which is the reason why Tom Coughlin got his job, of course. And so having that opportunity, to me, I felt, man, I'm on my way. I've overcome a lot. But I allowed my ego to get out of place. And you notice I didn't mention anything about the Lord because the Lord was nowhere in my life at that time. And for me, Lou Holtz would always talk about the WIN in life. What's important now? I think it's kind of fitting, football season, but to share a little bit of a vernacular of WIN and what's important now in your life. Of course, I use that even now to today. And he would always ask us, depending on what your decisions are, you need to ask yourself what's important now. What are your goals? And do your decisions align with those goals to ask yourself what's important now? Because you will win no matter where you are in life if you ask yourself what's important now. And I want to use, of course, what Ross talked about was why do you do what you do? Of course, you need to know why. You need to know the what. But I want to talk about the next W is who. See, I thought I was a football player. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who my identity was. I didn't know the Lord the whole time was really protecting me. Going through the streets of Chicago so many times when I could have got jumped or got chased by gangs, he was protecting me, giving me an opportunity to not even meet a man who knew me, crossing paths with a guy that gave me an opportunity. He orchestrated all of this. But I thought I was made to play football until that second year, which I felt like I was on my way. I got called into a room about this size, and there was an academic dean that said, you guys are the worst of the worst. You guys meant there were about 10 people in this class, some girl athletes, of course, a couple of my roommates, because we never went to class. And we were on academic probation. They said, here at Notre Dame, you don't know what it means to be a student athlete, meaning a student first, athlete second. And he was right. And you will not be here next semester. You won't make it. If I have this meeting with people, nobody's really made it. So I just asked you to start filling out applications someplace else. For me, that hit me because I had never prayed in 2 years I had been there. And I got on my knees and I prayed. And I said, God, you got to help me stay here at Notre Dame and somehow help me with a wife. Because I had did everything that the world had told me would make me happy. And it didn't. And I asked God for my wife. We met. 3 months later, after we met, we were married. Now, we've been married for 24 years, and it was one of those drastic situations where, man, my dad disowned me. Can you imagine? I couldn't even be the captain of the football team on my academic probation. I'm getting kicked out of school, and now I want to get married. My friends disowned me. And so I knew that this was my angel, and I ended up getting married. And her first day on campus, she told me, you need to get up and go to class. I'm like, go to class? I mean, I got people taking great notes. Don't worry about it. I got it covered. You know, see, I wanted a different result, but I was doing the same thing, right? I'm on academic probation. I said the prayer, God, help me stay here. But I'm actually doing the exact same thing that I was doing. But if it wasn't for her to say, I'm going back home, I didn't marry a dumb jock unless you get up and go to class. So I started getting up and going to class. Next thing you know, I'm sitting in the front of the class. Perception becomes reality. The teacher's like, man, this guy is really interested, which I didn't even know what was going on, but they wanted to help me. And so the academic dean was correct. Every person in that room got kicked out. Every athlete that was there got kicked out of Notre Dame. I was the only person that made it. Now, I put the work in, but from that circumstance and situation, I realized the Lord was real. I didn't understand the relationship side. I had to go through, of course, understanding God wasn't a good luck charm. You just don't go to chapel the day before the game because you want to have a great game, because it was all about me still. Until I realized that it wasn't about me. And I couldn't have been drafted to a better team. I'm telling you, I didn't know Jacksonville on the face of the map. I didn't. I mean, it was a new team, and the Cowboys were actually going to draft me. Jerry Jones called me the day before the draft and said, son, we're drafting you. You're going to be a Cowboy, son. And so here I am with the Cowboys taking me and my family out to dinner the day before the draft. I thought I was going to be a Cowboy. And, of course, I get drafted by Jacksonville. I said, where is that? And then, of course, I come out and me and my wife, and it couldn't have been a better place for me and my family. We love Jacksonville. Unbelievable place. I mean, a Bible Belt. I mean, it was amazing. Not to mention our team. Our leaders on our team coming in as a rookie was Mark Brunell, who was a star quarterback, all-pro, Tony Baselli, Joe Smingy, Brian Schwartz, all starters on the team. But guess what? They love the Lord. I mean, I'm just telling you, I've been on 4 teams with the Saints. Of course, Drew Brees, great leader, great believer. Redskins, Giants, but I'm just telling you, I've never been on the team where we had the majority of our starters and stars were not only loving the Lord, but they were the leaders up front talking about, hey, you need to give your life to Christ, and just right in your face, which I needed to hear. And I remember getting an invite from Mark Brunell and having an opportunity to go to a Bible study at his house. I heard the man, me and my wife were there, and we responded and gave our life to Christ, because I then realized what it was really like to have a relationship with the Lord. It was a journey for me. I didn't give my life to Christ right away. I needed to understand what that was all about. And then we get water baptized right there in Mark Brunell's pool. That night, me and my wife, now you know, for a black woman to get her hair wet, that's something else right there. I'm just telling you. But Jesus was more important now. Yeah. And so I get baptized, me and my wife, and I'm just telling you, I've ended up being discipled by Brian Schwartz. He just said, hey, man, I want to meet with you, man. I want to share the Bible. I didn't know what discipleship was, but that's what he was doing. He was meeting with me once a week in the defensive room before we even got started, and he would go over the Bible with me. He would share different things, and I began to understand what the relationship for Christ was all about. And so for me, guys, I mean, my who and what's important now became who I am in Christ. That had to take the lead. That had to be the person for me that no matter what I did, the what's important now, I need to know who I am. I need to know who my identity is, that my identity is in Christ, to be renewed each and every day. The I and what's important now as I get ready to close is, man, Ross talked about it, making an impact. You know, at the end of the day, before I can make an impact, there needs to be a certain influence in my life. Brian Schwartz was an influence in my life, and because he took that time, he was able to make an impact. When we're able to serve and not be served, that gives you a right to make an influence in somebody's life, which in turn make an impact in somebody's life, which Jesus said, and we saw what Jesus did. And so being able to have that influence and that impact in someone's life is huge in terms of being able to share the gospel. And it really just comes from, like Ross talked about, the servanthood mentality, to be able to serve others more than ourselves. And then, and of course, but I do have to share the one story, guys, is the person that had also a huge impact on me was our chaplain, a guy named Don Walker, who was an FCA chaplain here. And the reason why I say that, because he pulled things out of me that I was really afraid of. Things that I was very uncomfortable with, and the biggest fear in my entire life is speaking. I had a bad speech impediment issue when I was young. We didn't have a speech pathologist. My mom, of course, would try to help me, and I didn't talk as a young person coming up. Even in high school, I was very introverted, very shy. I didn't like speaking. Don Walker, when I got here, of course, I can answer questions if somebody asked me a question on TV or something like that, but I had never spoken in any crowd. And Don said, hey, we're going to do an outreach. It was the summer when I got there, my rookie year in the off season. We're going to do an outreach over at the baseball stadium. We want some guys to kind of share their testimony. I think it'd be awesome because you just gave your life to Christ. You get water baptized in Mark Brunell's pool. And I made up a lie. I said, I can't do it. I got something I got going on. And man, I was so convicted. And I can tell, how somebody can tell you're lying? Don looked at me with that look like, yeah, okay, all right. And then to the second time when we had Billy Graham Crusade come here in town, of course, the young lady shared about, her affiliation with the Billy Graham Crusade. They do a great job. They're in Charlotte as well. If you ever go to the Billy Graham Library and you're in Charlotte, you got to go by there. That's a bucket list. And the Billy Graham Crusade, they're coming in. Of course, there takes preparation to be able to prepare for this. This is a huge event. We all knew about Billy Graham, and they wanted Don Walker to pick 2 players to share at the Billy Graham Crusade. And so he comes in, and Coughlin gives Don the floor and says, hey, we got Billy Graham coming in. Don's going to pick 2 guys. And he says, hey, I'm going to pick Mark Brunell. Of course. Mark Brunell, man, this guy's awesome, man. He's going to share. I'm in the back. I'm a rookie. I'm like, this is going to be great. And he says, Renaldo Wynn. I look like I saw a ghost, right? I'm like, so I waited for everybody to leave. I had never spoken anywhere. And I'm like, oh, my. So I waited for Don. I said, Don, I just want to make sure you heard that right. You said, me, Renaldo? He said, yeah, I prayed about it, man. The Lord told me, Mark and you. I said, well, God didn't tell me that. and I was going to make up another lie, and he stopped me in my tracks, before I even got it out of my mouth. He said, son, you've been blessed to play this game. God has blessed you to do this in front of millions of people. You can't share what the Lord has done in your life? He called me out. I said, all right, I said, I'm going to do it. I said, I'm going to do it, man. And I was so nervous. I couldn't sleep for weeks, months ahead of that, man. I couldn't sleep. I'm trying to think about what I'm going to say. The night before the Billy Graham Crusade, I couldn't sleep the whole night before the night. Couldn't sleep. I get there, and, of course, I see Billy Graham. He's there. Steve Spurrier was there because I didn't know Billy Graham and Steve Spurrier's mom were good friends growing up. And so, again, I'm thinking, man, Billy Graham's going to give the greatest pep talk. Pre-game speech, man. They said Billy Graham wants to meet with you, his right-hand guy. He comes back. He said Billy Graham's going to share something before you guys go out. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be great, man. And he says just these few simple words. Hey, men, let the Lord lead you. I said, that's it? But really, those were the most powerful words that I never forgot. Because even though I still get nervous, it doesn't go away when I speak. I don't care if it's in front of 5 or however many people. I always pray that prayer, Lord, you lead me. Let it not be me, but it be your will. And those simple words have just, man, stuck with me. I mean, just been imprinted in my heart when Billy Graham gave me, which was the greatest pep talk. Let the Lord lead you. And so the last thing is never give up, guys. Jesus, you want to talk about courage, what he did for us on that cross. He didn't sin at all, but he never gave up on humanity. He paid the price. He was perfect. And even in tough times, I can just tell you this, that's when the Lord really uses you. The thorn in your side, to be able to depend on our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, to know that we can never give up, that he said he'll never leave us or forsake us. Even when I got fired by Joe Gibbs on my birthday, I wanted to give up. And it was during that time when I wanted to cuss Coach out. I'm just being honest. And instead, I said, thank you for the opportunity. I thought my career was over. And he said, son, you're more than a football player. What was he speaking to my identity again? Because sometimes as believers, we even allow what we do to become who we are. And that can never take the place. And it was at that time where Coach shared that with me. And then I happened to get fired but get hired to be a part of what I'm doing now, which I love. And so as we just close, of course, I have an opportunity to share a neat partnership. Again, what we started, Game Plan for Life, coming here 5 years ago, we have this great opportunity again to be able to reach the unsaved, the unchurched, and to be able to do it through football. Not just football, but a football game. And more importantly, each of you are members at a church. And this is more than any great opportunity that we've had. We've done faith, family, football, and partnership on a Sunday. We found out for our churches that's an important day. So for the Thursday night game of next week, it is such an amazing partnership. Of course, Game Day Church, which we're going to bring these two gentlemen up. But first, I'm going to bring up Daniel and how the Jaguars have partnered with us to be able to do this Faith Family Football Night on Thursday of next week, to be able to reach the unsaved, the unchurched, to be able to allow continued growth for our brothers and sisters in Christ to hear from Joe Gibbs. Of course, Joe Gibbs doesn't charge to come. We never do. His plane, everything that he does, we do not charge a dime. He's going to bring a free book for everybody that shows up. But, of course, the Jaguars are doing an exceptional job to be able to partner and be able to allow people not only to hear Joe Gibbs, to be able to share the game plan for life, which is the gospel, to a group that are hopefully unchurched, to be an easy invite for you, but also to be able to go and see the hated Tennessee Titans get beat next week. And so can I bring up real quick Daniel, and then, of course, John, you can just follow up real quick and share, of course, this great partnership. And Daniel's going to share about how you can get involved in this unbelievable. I mean, what they're doing is amazing. I'm just telling you. I mean, the cost that they've taken and absorbed just for the opportunity to impact the community is truly amazing. And so Daniel's going to share a little bit about how you can get involved.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
Good morning, everyone. As Renaldo said, my name is Daniel. I'm one of our senior account managers for the Jaguars. So firstly, I want to say that we're very honored and excited. Number one, to partner with Game Plan for Life and Coach Gibbs. I think that's something that I've been with the team since 2015. So I've been trying to spearhead this sort of event for a few years now, and some things aligned that we're very excited about. So being able to partner with him and be able to hear his testimony, and I'm sure many of you in the room probably have heard it before, but it's very powerful, and his ministry is life-changing and game-changing. So the event itself is, as Renaldo said, next Thursday evening, so September the 19th. We are hosting Game Plan for Life at 6:30 p.m. in Daly's Place. For those of you maybe who haven't been near the stadium recently, that's the amphitheater attached to the football stadium. So we're going to have a pregame event with Coach, followed by our football game against the Titans at 8:30. So what we've done is we try to find the most turnkey way to get as many people into that event as we possibly can. So we've put together a program. This is kind of twofold. Number one, we're encouraging group leaders, community leaders like all of you. Sorry, thank you. We're encouraging all community leaders to be involved, get plugged in with bringing a group out if you're able to the event. So we have what we call our Huddle Sponsor Program. The program is designed with football terminology. It includes 22 tickets to the pregame event with Coach Gibbs, as well as the football game. And there's some additional resources for you as a group leader as well, in the form of being able to actually meet Coach with a meet and greet after the event is over. So what we've done is put together our most affordable kind of value program. So it's a $35 ticket per person.
Wow.
Get you access to the pregame event with Coach Gibbs, as well as a ticket to the football game. So the huddle sponsor is basically 22 of those. It comes together. Now, I know there may be some of you in the room that say, hey, Daniel, that's great, but I can't get 22 people to come out to the event. This is an event for everybody. So we also have a program, jaguars.com/faith. I encourage all of you to go on there as well to learn more, and that would be anybody can go on there and secure a seat for the event. And I think the biggest thing in my pledge to all of you in this room would be to pray. I think the power of prayer is, as you all know, is probably the most important thing. So pray for this event. Everybody in here can share word of mouth, can help get the word out about this event, which is next Thursday. I'll stick around here for a few moments after this, over there at the table. So if any of you want to learn more, want to get involved, or maybe have someone that's not here that you think would maybe want to do this for their church, for their men's group, for their membership group, a life group, a football team. I'm going to have John share a little bit more about Game Day Church and FCA and how they've seen how they're using this opportunity as well.
Thank you. I just want to say Pastor Tarkington sends his apologies. He was actually supposed to come speak today, but he had a funeral, so you got the JV, so I apologize for that. But Game Day Church was a vision and a lot of prayer of just realizing that we live in a society that is sports mad and sports crazy. We know that. And so instead of lamenting that, we decided, let's take the gospel to the people. And what better place than outside a football stadium that's going to have 60,000, 70,000 people. So Game Day Church is a ministry. Was launched, and we're now seeing the fruit of that. And I just wanted to share a quick story about what's happening through Renaldo and Coach Gibbs and the Jaguars. But for the first time, this is just kind of an incredible story, but 2 local businesses stepped up through FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, in the Clay County area, and they purchased 2 of these huddles for 2 of the rival high schools, Orange Park High School and Ridgeview High School. So these are 2 schools that they don't like each other. They want to beat each other on Friday nights. This is, and the amazing thing is that they are going to take a charter bus together.
Wow.
To go to this event next Thursday night. So that's the kind of fruit that you're seeing as we go, and the power of prayer, like he talked about. That's an incredible story. And like I said, I went to Orange Park High School. I played there, and I just know that the rivalries, we know that they're real. And so for these young men to come together with their coaches on a school night, it's pretty incredible. So I just wanted to share that story with you, because that's a pretty neat thing, and that God's doing.
Thank you, guys. So as John comes up again, think about the opportunity. There's somebody that you know, and maybe if you don't, start to think about outside the holy huddle of that unchurched person, that you can have an easy invite to come and hear a gospel message where Coach is going to share the gospel in a grassroots way. We're also going to have response cards at the end to follow up and have people respond and say, hey, if you gave your life to Christ for the first time, check that box. Those cards are not for us. They're for you guys. For new churches that maybe want to expand churches, can you use a few more men? I hadn't heard a church tell me no yet. And so it may be even start a church to have unchurched men and ladies to come and hear a gospel message. Again, it's about discipleship. Thank you guys for your time. We're all going to stay and to answer any questions you have. We'll be over there by the Jaguar table afterwards. Thank y'all. Appreciate it. God bless.